Hello everybody and welcome to this session on crafting learning journeys with learning maps. As you heard, I'm Judith Birke, or Judith in English. I'm a learning experience designer at the Institute for Digital Education and Information Technology at the University of Teacher Education in St.Gallen, which is in Switzerland. As you can see here on the slide, this is a map of Switzerland, and where the flag is, that's where I work. So that's pretty close to the Austrian border, where I'm originally from. And this map, as well as all the slides that you'll see, they are from our platform, our Moodle platform, Aprendo Digitale Kompetenz, so Aprendo Digital Competence. And that's a platform for continuing education for teachers. Now, before we dive into the learning maps themselves, let me explain to you how I came across that plugin and how I came across that and why I love that plugin mod_learning map. It's available on the Moodle plugin directory. I was asked, and it all started for me when I was asked to create a self-paced learning course or self-paced course for teachers of our canton. And there's about 14,000 of them. And so of course I knew that they would have different learning needs. And I knew also that the needs varied a lot because of the different levels of knowledge, prior knowledge of the subject matter that they had. And I could have offered, of course, to them a standard course like this one here. This is on our platform. You have different sections. Let's say the course was on Switzerland, and there are different sections, different topics. And in each section, let's say here is one on Swiss cities, you would have activities, and they're all accessible right from the beginning. That's why I would call this an open learning journey or an open path or a road trip, if you want to call it that. And they could decide themselves if they wanted to go first or start with Bern or Zurich or Lugano or whatever. This would have been a standard course, which I didn't want to offer to those 14,000 teachers. I could also have had this kind of setting that you lock some of the activities, that they use the access restriction feature. As you can see here, some activities are locked and they would become available as the learners proceed. You could also, of course, hide, and this I would call a kind of sequential learning journey. And you could also, of course, hide these activities and reveal them step by step, or the next activity is not displayed before the previous hasn't been done, which is a gradual pathway, let's say. And last but not least, these were all based, the before ones were all based on activity completion as a criterion. And of course, you could also have the score of an activity as a criterion. Any activity that allows for grading or for evaluation could be used. I used here in this example, no, wrong direction, sorry, a quiz, and then the learners would get as the next activity the one that suits them best according to the test. So this is all standard things, and that's great. These are great features that Moodle offers here, but if you compare them, the open, sequential, gradual, adaptive path or learning journey, they all look pretty much the same. Yeah? They're all lined up activities that the learners most of the time work through from top to bottom. But I wanted to offer to them something that would visually offer visual support to them, like kind of so that they could see their learning journey and not just see activities that they would work through one by one. And I wanted, actually, here you see what I wanted. I wanted them to have choices, to have more self-directed learning, and also to set goals. And not just write next to the activity always like, this is the goal, or this is compulsory and this is optional. I wanted to display that somehow. And that's where I found this great plugin mod_learning map with which you can create these kind of learning maps. And the rest of the presentation, I'd like to show you different maps that I created, and with these maps explain how they work and what you can use them for. So this is they're all just examples for different settings. Like this one here, all the circles or learning places that you can see here are activities. The learners click on the green or red circle and then land directly in the activity, which can be any activity that you have, of course, in your system. The green ones are the ones that the learner has already done. The red ones haven't been done yet. The path between them are the roads that they can take. And in the back, the last learning place is the target place. You can see that, I know, yeah, I guess you can. In the back, far back, there is one red dot with some little dashes, and that's the target location. And this learner here, I can only assume what this person did, but it looks to me, if the goal was to reach the target place, then maybe this person tried first the track on the very left-hand side, the shortest one. That's what the learners most of the time do, where you can tell them, well, the shortest one, though, is maybe the most difficult one, and then if they don't succeed, they try another path. At the beginning, the learner might only see, you could set it in a way that the learner only sees a starting place, and the rest is grayed out or not visible at all. That's all adjustable in the settings. And then as they proceed, other places become available. So here the learner has the choice which track they want to try. The ticks, the check marks are also something that you can set in the settings, especially if you have red and green dots or learning places, then it's advisable to use the check marks just for accessibility. And that's what it could look like then. So this is just one example. Now something completely different from a course for primary school teachers on ground robotics. We wanted them to, before the first class, we wanted them to familiarize with some of the robots. And that's why there are several activities where you see the robots. That's where activities are set as target places. So these had to be reached, whereas the others are optional. So you have this possibility of indicating what's optional and what's compulsory. Plus, let's see if this works. Up here, yeah. This is where you can also see that you can set an activity, the activity completion tracker for the learning map itself. Here it says reach all target places. So also from that, you would know as an instructor or educator, you could check, and the learners themselves, of course, as well, whether they have fulfilled the task or not. It can be all target places. It could also be one target place or all the places on your map. And you can also see here that you can have the names of the activities displayed. You don't have to do that, but it's sometimes helpful just for orientation for your users. Let's go on. Now, this could be a possibility if you have different levels or different interests in your learner group. Here it's levels, beginners, false beginners, intermediate, advanced, it says, but it could also be Italian, French, German speaking, these categories. And you let the users here decide themselves, what group do you want to join? And then they work their way step by step to, in this case, it was a box, which is where they hand in their assignment. And once they have handed in their assignment, they would reach the flag, the target place, which is paradise in this case here. But of course, you could also have the kind of performance-oriented differentiation beforehand and say, I'll put a placement test before that. And the placement test will then guide the learner or open the next location to the learner so that they could make their way up to paradise. If this looks a bit confusing to you or maybe your learners at the beginning, you could also hide all this and just show them the path that suits them best. Now, in the learning map activity itself for the educator, it looks like this. You have more or less the same, you see the same things as the learner, but additionally the paths, if you hide them. You have lots of settings that you can adjust here, like show the names or set the check mark. And if you wanted that scenario that I just showed you, then just make sure that you don't tick the show all paths and places, which is a common thing that gets forgotten. At the bottom of this page, you can also see it says down there, show map on a course page. It's checkmarked because I personally prefer to see to make the learning map visible on the front page, on the starting page of the course or of the section. But you could also just display the activity symbol if you wanted to. Now, this is a completely different use case. If you have learners who want to or have to do a project or maybe study for an exam, you could give them this kind of agenda and help them organize their workload for the exam, which might take place in November, let's say. And in between, you have milestones, the target locations, and the paths are more or less what you suggest that they should, what order they should take. But you could change all this and have that in different orders and different connections. That's just another idea. And talking about calendars, something I have in mind is I might make a Christmas calendar with a learning map in the near future. Now, you could also, and this is where maybe also the gamification factor comes in, that you could also use maps or play with maps in groups, that you can set it in group mode. And that means that any place that is visited or activity that is done by one member of your group will also display the completion of, or the, in this case it was petals on the cactus, will display the result on all the other members' maps of your group. And this is really nice because in this case, for example, this is meant for really young learners of mathematics. Let's say they have just learned the timetables, so 3 times 3, 4 times 4, and so on. And they see at the beginning this cactus with the 4 starting places. And the topic is help the bees. So they have no idea what that's got to do with their math. But while they are working on the activities here, they see that whenever they do an activity, another petal becomes visible. And the more and more they do, the more and more they understand that the cactus is in bloom once they have done or visited all the different places. And here, as a kind of reward, because here the target, again, up here, this bit, reach all places. So those who did really all the calculations, they would then in the end see, is it, the bees coming as a little reward for them. For the educator, it looks like this, that you have lots of paths and connections in the back. They're really quick to set. You don't have to work on that for a long time. That's really easy to do. And in this case, I hid all the paths because it looks almost like a web, which would not look nice on the cactus, I thought. And here we go. You could also plan events with learning maps, have excursions with your students, or maybe the next MoodleMoot organized in a learning map where you have yellow learning places, like things about the venue, about accommodation, or the MoodleMoot party. Or you use it for timelines, like for your history class or your company success story, for onboarding processes of new staff. There's a lot of things possible with these learning maps. Or a checklist. It's not my favorite type of usage of a learning map, but theoretically you could also have checklists. What you can also see here is at the bottom right bottom corner is a floating button with a home symbol, which I used then when I created this task, so that the learners would, when they are in the activities, get back to the learning map. But in the meantime, so this is quite a bit old, this example, but in the meantime, that's why this floating button is still there. In the meantime, it's in the plugin available that you just check that the backlinks should be available in every activity. So everything is organized for you. Now, this is one of my favorites. This is a map where you would, at the beginning, just see one starting point on the very far left, that one. And that's also a target place. And that's the only point that they see at the beginning. And in there, they see a lock with a numeric code or a missing numeric code. And then they have to work their way through the map to get hints towards the code. And once they have found the right numbers, the right digits, then they could get back to that location, to that target or starting point, enter the code, and then something would happen. You could also have the same thing with a little fog covering the map, and it reveals, the other activities reveal as the students or the learners proceed. Also simply in here you can have a check mark where it says reveal map with places. Oh yeah, and there's one more arrow on there to remind me that you have helpful texts in there. It's really, really well done. It's very simple, and above the map there are normally also two buttons which also give information on that plugin. You can also have pulsing or pulsating learning places if you want to. If the map is maybe a little bit crowded like here, it's a lot easier to spot the places. And talking about places, I haven't explained to you yet how you can create this whole thing after installing the plugin, which is totally free. You just upload the picture that you want to have in the background. You double click on it. That's how you create the circles or the learning places. And in the drop-down, you decide which activity, which you have created beforehand. This can be any activity. Which activity should be assigned to that location. And here it's just one thing that's really important, that you can see there are some places in green and red, orange and black. The green ones are the ones that you have used before. You can still use them again if that makes sense in your context. The black ones haven't been used, but the orangish ones, like Innsbruck, my hometown, or Zermatt or Perth in this list, they are not available for your learning map because you haven't set the activity completion tracker on for that activity. And that's something that gets forgotten when you start working with learning maps quite often, that people create lots of activities and forget to set the activity completion tracker on, and they start producing those dots in the map, and then they're wondering why you can't assign them. So that's the reason why they are highlighted in orange here. And as you can also see, you can make them starting place or target places, or both, of course, or none. It's completely flexible. Yeah, and this is the last map I want to show you. That's the one I actually created then for the teachers. Originally, it was in German, and it was about a software product. I don't want to mention here the name of it, so I changed it into Switzerland. But the rest was exactly the same thing. And this covered a course of about 4 hours. And what's special about it is, well, no, let me explain it this way. You start, of course, at the top where the start is, and the learners had to work their way through the map to get to the cockpit at the bottom of the page. But they would only get access if they had collected sufficient trophies. You can see some trophies on the slide. There are about 10-ish of them, but they would have to collect 7 so that they could get access to the master trophy and then to the certificate. And while they were collecting these trophies, the trophies were displayed underneath the learning map. But that's something I did that's not included in the learning map activity. That's just something that you can do if you want to. And what I also did with this map is that there's one location which says checklist. It's at the quite top right-hand corner. Because this was the very first learning map that we introduced on our site, I thought, and we didn't have much time for testing. We had no idea how our learners would react. Well, a little bit, yes, we had an idea, but we weren't really sure how these teachers would react. So I created a checklist for them. So those who did not want to work with the learning map, which could look confusing at first sight, could use that checklist. But hardly anybody did, actually. I was really happy with the results that most of them, or all of them, actually worked with the learning map, and that was really good. But it's an option. And at the beginning, we also had a location saying help, so that we would explain how this learning map works. We would explain that to the learners. And this plugin has been developed by a guy who's here today. And I think that's really good that I can introduce you to this guy who made all this possible and who created it. And I would like to introduce you to Stefan Hanauska and ask you on the stage. Stefan, please come up here. And as it's time for questions, now you can ask all the difficult questions, Stefan. Hi, Stefan. Hi. Thank you very much. So, are there any questions? I have no idea how much time we've got. Oh, yeah, we do have a few minutes.
First, thank you for providing this beautiful plugin to the community. So, what was your reason to make an activity out of it instead of a course format?
Instead of a course format?
Yeah. Because that's really what I'm wondering, because I'm experimenting a bit with it, and I thought it could be a course format as well. That's why I'm wondering.
So it was about having flexibility. I was thinking about a course format, and maybe there will be one incorporating the plugin. But as an activity, I have the possibility to build learning maps containing another learning map. So you have a huge learning map containing your whole school year, for example, and then you have first chapter, and first chapter is another learning map again, and you have activity completion for this first learning map, and if it's completed, you go back to the big map, and so on. So this was the main reason to do it as an activity.
Thank you.
It's about the same thing. I just read that you suggest, I think, on the website to use it as a unique activity course. And I was curious, how are you using it? Are you using it like the activity? Is it in a tile format course or topic, or do you put only one activity in your course and it's your map and you hide the activities? So I was just curious about how you are using it in the course.
Okay. We use the topic format, but it could be used in any format. Doesn't really matter. And I always put the activities in stealth mode so that the learners would actually only see the map. But there are people around who prefer that they also see in the navigation or in the course index, they can see the activities. But I personally always hide them.
I was going to ask the same question, but just a follow-up question. So it's the list of the activities that are available in the map. They're the list of activities within a section, within the course, within how, can you do cross-section activities? So you could technically put all your activities in a section, like a data room kind of section, and then draw from there.
They could be anywhere in your course. They could be actually in another course as well, as long as the learners have access.
As
But yeah, that's completely free. That's
Okay,
very, very flexible.
fantastic.
Hi, I just want to say thank you so much. This was a great presentation. I know I'm over here. This was fabulous. This was probably the highlight of the whole MoodleMoot actually to us.
Thank you.
But my question, and I think the first person may have asked it, but I just want to clarify that the learning map is part of, it's going to the course level. It's not going to your system level, right? Like you can't pull in courses to say they've completed it. It just has to be a course. It's at the course level. Okay, thank you again.
Any
Appreciate
plans? But there are a few plans that you have, right? Do you want to say those things yourself? Maybe one or two things?
Well, there will be a lot of further development, but it's always a question of time, you know. We will probably rework the editor to be more flexible, to have different items to that the places could look like, and maybe also to customize the different places a bit more. If you think about the cactus that Judith just showed, it would be just great to have these ones in the middle to be yellow or something like that, or red, but currently we can't do that. So this will be something new we'll introduce, and maybe some other features. Our GitHub issue tracker is full of feature requests, so don't know what will come first.
And I'll add a few more, since I've prepared a few of these
There are
now.
some by you.
Any more? Ah, there is one more. Over there.
Hello, very beautiful result it gives. And I was wondering if it would be feasible to have the possibility of having a master learning map determined by the teacher, but have the itinerary more precisely being individualized by students themselves.
I didn't quite catch it. You wanted a master?
I wouldn't, as a teacher, I would make the master map with all the points, but the students could have the choice of making the different path, linking the points.
Well, if
Or personalize their own learning map.
you can let them choose if you don't set any points and just make all the places as starting places. Then they can choose whatever they want to.
So we can already do it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Martin.
I think it's a lovely plugin. Like it's very. I love plugins that have just that amount of functionality, and then they're infinitely customizable after that. It's great. I was wanting to ask, what happens on mobile and in the app? How does that look?
It works perfectly well.
Yeah.
Well, I think in the app it doesn't work yet, but in mobile it works. As we have an issue about making it ready for the app, but I just didn't take care about that right now. But I want to make it available in the app. On mobile it works, but the main difficulty is for the trainers to create the map on mobile. It's possible, but it's not as good as I wanted to have yet. So maybe there will be some further development.
Amazing. Great.